In today's video, we have all the latest NHL trade chatter, a lot of which comes from the 32 Thoughts segment on Hockey Night in Canada. Today we're talking about some big potential moves involving the Montreal Canadiens, the Vancouver Canucks, the latest on Claude Giroux, Max Comtois, and John Klingberg. Plus we have a variety of injury updates and a couple of claims on the NHL waiver wire. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. First up, we have a couple of NHL waiver wire claims. Yesterday, we had the Panthers placing defenseman Allred on waivers, as well as the Kraken placing forward Austin Czarnik on waivers, and both of which were claimed. Allred ends up going to the Detroit Red Wings. Hopefully he'll get more of an opportunity there. Of course, he started the season with the Vancouver Canucks, was lost on waivers to Florida, where he was basically used as a seventh defenseman on like a spare part almost. He appeared in 10 games, also played a couple of games in their American Hockey League affiliate in Charlotte. Otherwise, he hasn't really played a ton this year, so we'll see what kind of opportunity he can get with the Detroit Red Wings. And Austin Czarnik returns back to the New York Islanders, which is where he started the year, ended up on waivers, claimed by the Kraken, and now he goes back. So obviously, since he's going back to his former club, who would have first right to put the claim in for him, they can demote him directly to the American Hockey League, which is what they've done here as well. So a couple of waiver wire claims, nothing substantial, but some more movement in the case of Czarnik and Ulevy for the third time this season. Things have changed for them, especially actually in Ulevy's case, he's on his third team. Czarnik's technically on his second team, but multiple transactions and making him move around this year. When it comes to the other NHL news, we have a few signings to talk about here as well. The Coyotes have signed a couple of players, which is interesting to note because they don't really have a lot of players under contract for next season. We know that the Coyotes, of course, are going to be transitioning away from Glendale and Gila River Arena into the new ASU building, which is a really low capacity, which is, kind of, had a lot of discussions around it. It seems like there's still a lot of NHL, when it comes to the PA players, the Coyotes players themselves, they're not really thrilled about this move. They may have a hard time attracting players playing in such a small arena, and it's hard to say how that's going to go. So I think we're going to see the Coyotes kind of make a push here to get some players signed and maybe even make a few acquisitions at the deadline. It might involve players with term, so they can kind of shore up what's being, signed and available to them next season in case free agency is not something that goes overly well. But they have signed Liam O'Brien to a one-year extension. Of course, he gets a two-way deal, $750,000 at the NHL level, $250,000 at the American Hockey League level. But he'll probably be able to spend most of that time in the NHL, I would think. He's appeared in, I believe it's 37 games this year for Arizona, so he's certainly getting more chances and a one-year extension for him. So it's another player signed, and they signed Travis Boyd, who's certainly become a bit of a veteran player. After bouncing around through a few NHL teams, he kind of settles in Arizona, and you might say, well, he gets a 2-year deal at 1.75. Why would he want to do that? Probably because of all the places he's been. This is the best opportunity he's had, and he hasn't made over $1 million per season yet. So this is a significant raise for him. He's been making, $700,000-800,000. So they're basically doubling his salary and getting him a couple of years of term in job security. So even though it might not be the most ideal scenario with what the Coyotes are going to be going through, for him, it's a good chance, good opportunity. So it's a good signing on his part. And obviously, he probably took advantage of the fact when negotiating that deal, the fact he might be able to get a little bit more money there because of everything that's going on. And we also had a signing in Vegas with the Golden Knights extending defenseman Ben Hutton on a 2-year contract as well. So you have to wonder with the deadline approaching, the Vegas Golden Knights are definitely going to be doing something. They have some question marks because of the injuries they have, as well as even including a goal. So you have to think now with Hutton signed for 2 more years at $850,000, they have some good defensemen there now and pretty, team-friendly, valuable contracts. So it could open up the door for one of those D-men to be moved in a potential trade. We'll see. It's not something you don't really want to see subtracting on the blue line going to the deadline, but depending on, what else they want to do, they may have to have some money go out as well, because it appears as though Robin Lehner's likely going to be trying to play through what he's dealing with, which is a shoulder injury, which we're led to believe could be involving surgery in the offseason, and it's hard to say how things are going to go. So there's a lot of question marks in Vegas, but getting a bunch of players signed for these, under $1 million deals could certainly help their cap situation and make you wonder who might be heading out, and some of these valuable contracts will likely be sticking around to balance the books. Now, some injury updates. Matt Dumba returns today for the Minnesota Wild. He had been out for the last few weeks, so that's a good return for them. A couple of goalies going down in injury. The Sharks have placed James Reimer on IR, which explains the Alex Stalock acquisition and recall immediately, so good opportunity for Stalock to get some playing time. Unfortunately for Reimer, who's having a real solid season, now on IR. Matt Murray's not on IR as of yet, but looks like he's going to be out, and they have recalled Philip Gustafsson in Ottawa, so we'll see what happens with Murray. It's unfortunate. He had a good run, was playing really well. The last couple of games were a little bit not so good, and now appears to have another injury. The guy seems to be injury prone, which is the story of his life here the past 2 to 3 seasons. The Maple Leafs had to place Andre Kasha on IR as well with an upper body injury. Another unfortunate case. He had been playing much better, but another guy seems to keep running into injuries time after time. So hopefully he can stay healthy for them longer term here into the playoffs, because he was playing well and was becoming a big part of that top 9 or middle 6 of the lineup. So we'll see where all these injuries go. Now, onto the NHL trade rumors of the video here, and there's lots to talk about, some very interesting stuff, including the Montreal Canadiens possibly trading away Captain Shea Weber, or at least the contract of Shea Weber, because as of right now, it's expected that Shea Weber will not play again, and his career is essentially over. He still has a number of years left on it. The cap hit is over $7 million per season. But the good news is, even though there's a high cap hit and a number of years left, the actual cash amount left on it is only $6 million. So this could be used in a variety of ways to help other NHL franchises, and could extract a decent return to the Montreal Canadiens to help reshape that team and take them into the future. A team like Arizona, for example, who needs to spend to get to the cap next year, cap floor that is, maybe they're a team that would want to take that on. And of course, in his case, Weber's not going to care who pays him, and if he goes to another market that has less tax, he might actually be able to take home more money as well. So really, no big deal to him. But it could be used in that type of sense, or it could be used for a team who's really tight against the cap to expand their LTIR pool to be able to add going into the playoffs. So that's why this comes up at a time like this. We know a lot of the contending teams are really tight on cap space, and of course, if they acquire this contract, they can expand how much they can spend over the cap. And if a team has that, deep enough pockets and they want to be able to do that, like the Lightning, for example, they seem to be the team who did that a lot last year. Vegas did it again. They've been in LTIR, like deep amounts all season as well. So it wouldn't be shocking if either of those two teams have been using it the most, kind of go down that road to make this acquisition. Like I said, if he's not going to play again, it doesn't really matter to the Habs. And in the case of the contract, there's not a whole lot of cash owing on it anyway. So it could be either that, or a case, like I said, of a team needing to spend to the cap floor for the next few years, might want to have that contract on the books. Just obviously, they don't even need to put it on LTIR. In that case, like the Coyotes, for example, if they want to be able to keep their payroll low but keep the cap hits higher, it's certainly a way to manipulate that. So it might seem weird for Habs fans to be able to trade away the captain, Shea Weber, who was a great warrior for them for a long time, and obviously a big part of their run to the Stanley Cup final last year. But like I said, at the end of the day, if he's not going to play anymore, what's the difference who cuts his paycheck? If the contract can be moved and he can get you some future assets, then they might as well consider doing it. So it'll be very interesting to see if that happens ahead of the deadline. Something that would not surprise me in the least. Now, a couple of updates out of Vancouver between Thomas Drance and Rick Dhaliwal and Vancouver media updating the latest trade talk around some of their players. We know there's been a ton of speculation, but of course, all the Canucks seem to do lately is win and keep themselves in the playoff conversation. So it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this. We know GM Jim Rutherford, and or actually I should say President Jim Rutherford, and new GM Patrick Allvin, and all the new staff that they've hired there recently are looking for cap flexibility. So they're also more concerned, I think, about the future than they are of the current season. Obviously, Bruce Boudreau's come in and done a great job with the coaching staff there to turn things around and get them to be winning more hockey games this year. But it's, not really fair to say at this point that they're, a legit cup contender or anything like that. So as much as they probably would like to get into the playoffs and get these guys some more playoff experience, the owners would probably love it to get some more hockey revenue after a couple of years of pandemics and lack of, people being in the stands. But at the same time, they have to be realistic here and not only look for today, but for the future as well. So they know that this team is way too tight to the cap for a team that's been not consistently making the playoffs and not contending. Like, you have to be able to have your cap situation kind of grow with your players, and they haven't really done that. The last regime and Jim Benning certainly overspent a lot, especially on bottom six forwards, and they need to find their way kind of out of this mess. But they do have a lot of good pieces there. Now, one of the key pieces that's going to be owed a big raise next year is Brock Boeser, who's going to have a qualifying offer on an RFA contract at $7.5 million. And of course, Brock Boeser is a great player. He's performed much better under Bruce Boudreau. But at the same time, is he really, going to be able to justify that kind of money on a contract? It's debatable. Now, of course, I'm sure the Canucks are likely having conversations with Boeser's camp about extending at a smaller number, but that's the whole point of having those contracts structured the way they are, that if the player doesn't really feel that they want to do that, they can play hardball and say, that's okay. I'm owed a qualifying offer of this amount. I know you're going to give it to me because you don't want me to walk as an unrestricted free agent, because if you don't qualify the player, that's what happens. And they could take a 1-year deal and get themselves walking that much closer, or in some cases directly to unrestricted free agency. I mean, it's the players' leverage. That's why their agents negotiate deals the way they do. As much as some fans and teams might not like it, that's the way around things when you're trying to gain leverage for your side, which is all the negotiations is all about. So at the end of the day, Brock Boeser is getting a lot of trade interest because teams know that if they're looking for flexibility, that he might be a key guy to move out to kind of lower their long-term expense costs here on the cap hit. And the latest team to show a lot of interest in Boeser is the Pittsburgh Penguins, according to Dollywall. So, imagine Boeser playing with Crosby or Malkin. I mean, we know that the Pittsburgh Penguins are likely going to have themselves a lot of tough decisions this offseason. So that's as much as it's a good fit, and you could see him being successful with the kind of players he could play there. But at the same time, if you look at the fact that they're going to need to consider either re-signing or replacing Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and Brian Rust, for example, just the three of the top guys, that's obviously very tough as it is with the situation they're going to have for the cap next year. Then you throw in Boeser at $7.5 million potentially. That's a lot of dinero. I mean, I'm not sure how they're going to fit all that into the cap. If Boeser goes to Pittsburgh, I mean, you don't know who's going back to Vancouver the other way. Clearly, the Canucks are not going to be looking to get a lot of, or at least as much money going back to the other way. They're going to want more, picks, prospects, future assets, that type of deal. So I know that the Penguins have a defenseman and Pierre-Olivier Joseph they'd probably be willing to trade. We know they've made mention about Mike Matheson being available, but I'm not really sure the Canucks are going to want to do that. They're going to want to lower their cap hits. You could consider, a first-round pick, for example. There are a couple other younger prospects in there that might intrigue the Vancouver Canucks, but it's hard to really say what they would include. Would they include a guy maybe like, John Marino? If they're going to get a player with term or money, it's going to have to be a solid young player that they can see being a big part of their future for, a better value than what they feel Brock Boeser is worth, which is going to be tough. So as much as it makes some sense, it really, really complicate things and kiss at least one or two players goodbye in Pittsburgh in the offseason. And at the same time, like I said, I don't know that Vancouver would have any choice but to take some money back in a different way, and it might not give them the flexibility they want. So as much as there's inquiries there, and you can just imagine, the wheels turning and Boeser playing with those top-end talent, I think it'd be really hard to do. But interesting to note that they're very interested, and we'll see if there's anywhere creativity can be had to make this work. Now, on another front, apparently Nils Hoglander is also in the rumor mill. Drance and Dollywell are also reporting that there is a possibility he could be traded. There's been some mention about him in the rumor mill. Kind of been up and down under Bruce Boudreau. I still think he's a young player with a lot of upside and talent, so it's something they're going to have to tread carefully on. Somebody who can also be cost controlled for some time, where they're looking for cap flexibility. Makes you wonder why they would move Hoglander, but apparently his name is also out there. It's not just the big names like Boeser and Miller and Garland, etc., getting all the attention. So we'll see. I mean, Vancouver's going to be a very interesting team to watch. We've heard rumors about so many players in the Canucks organization. I have no doubt they'll probably make a move of some sort, but if they keep winning and heading towards the playoffs, you got to wonder if Rutherford and Alvin are going to make that trigger pull now, or if they're going to maybe hold off and do it in the offseason. We'll have to see where this goes, but they're going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch. Now, in the Anaheim Ducks organization, we've talked a lot about their defensemen on campus, Lindholm and Josh Manson, to a degree, Ricard Raquel, Ryan Getzlav, but another younger player that's, cost controlled as well, that's getting some attention in the rumor mill, according to Jeff Merrick on 32 Thoughts, is Maxime Comtois. Now, Comtois last year was one of their top players, put up 33 points. This year he's down to only 6 points in 31 games. He's missed time because of being a scratch. He's had some injury issues, and Comtois just had some major setbacks in his production this year. You have to wonder if it could be like just clashing with the coach. Him and Dallas Eakins just not, seeing eye to eye. I don't know. Hard to say, but we can see that we've had a lot of other players come into the Ducks this year, like Zegras, for example, Milano. We've seen Troy Terry. They've really exploded, and I think they've taken away more of the opportunity and getting more of the chances, the ice time, etc. And it's kind of pushed Comtois down a little bit, and I don't think that's entirely all it. He could obviously control this to more extent with better play, but at the same time, you have to wonder if maybe another player who could get similar value that's young, that could maybe use a swap might be something that we could see. Kind of brings to mind Jake DeBrusk in Boston. I don't know that there would be a one-for-one deal in that case if they did that, because DeBrusk is a couple years older, a little bit more established. So I don't think that's a completely fair trade, but something along those lines, like another player similar age that could use a swap of change of scenery, could be something like that we see. Now, the latest on Claude Giroux sees him possibly going to the Florida Panthers. That's the latest reports in the 32 Thoughts segment on Hockey Night in Canada as well, saying that the Flyers brass has been seen kind of doing a lot of scouting and of the Florida Panthers, as well as their minor hockey league affiliate. And this includes all levels of management, right up to ownership, being involved here, kind of doing a lot of watching and scouting. So curious to see that the Panthers are likely in on Giroux. And obviously one of the players they're believed to be keeping a close eye on, that would be like the centerpiece going back the other way, would be Owen Tippett, who is kind of, obviously he's a player who had more opportunity last year, but this team is so deep that he's going to get pushed down and has had to spend time in the minors, but still a guy who's expected to be, an NHL quality player for some time. Could get more opportunity in another organization like Philadelphia. You'd have to think, a package like Owen Tippett, maybe a first-round pick. I'm not sure if they need any more than that, but if they do, something else, could be easily had. So as much as we've heard a lot about Giroux to the Avalanche, and I think the Avalanche could certainly put a big package together and be a big player for him if that's what they really want to do, but they are going to have some real solid competition out of Florida, and it's, from what we've heard, it sounds like he would be interested in maybe going to a team like that as well. And of course, John Klingberg, one of the top defensemen who's expected to be moved, but of course the Dallas Stars are also in a predicament here where they kind of had themselves a good weekend to keep winning to stay in the playoff race. You have to wonder if they would use John Klingberg as a rental, but I don't get the impression that they will. I think Jim Nill will try to find a way to get some returns here, since it's very apparent and obvious that Klingberg will not be re-signing in Dallas. So as much as they hate to deplete themselves going into the playoffs, I really think it's still quite a likely possibility. And we could see a team like the Lightning who are very interested. Now, of course, that would be a different kind of trade. You have to wonder what the Dallas Stars would be interested in Tampa if they pulled off that kind of deal, because the Lightning are certainly a team that's obviously not in a great cap situation, so they'd likely have to take something off the books going back the other way. I'm not quite sure exactly what that would be. We haven't heard any rumors as to what kind of package the Lightning would offer, but they are apparently very interested in Klingberg and could be a good landing spot. The Lightning always seem to find a way to be able to get themselves a top player here the last few years as they try to go for their third straight Stanley Cup, so this would not come as any kind of surprise there if they were able to pull this off. That is all your latest news, rumors, updates for today, so certainly let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.